So, Eric, we've been dreaming about robots in our homes, I think many of us, since we saw childhood science fiction, and it's finally here. Uh, why? Why is humanoid robotics happening now? We're hearing about them from companies such as yourself. Last year, I interviewed Elon here at FII about the work he's doing on Optimus. We have Figure Robotics, but I've had a chance to visit 1X, incredible technology. I've had a time to spend with Neo Gamma, your robot. It's extraordinary. I have my order for one of the robots into my home. I can't wait to get it. Why now? Why is this all happening now?
Yeah, thanks, Peter, for having me on the stage. It's a huge honor to be here and share about humanoid robots with everyone here. I think the thing that has really unlocked humanoid robots was ChatGPT. And this was an existence proof that a general purpose AI that was able to do many, many different tasks was possible, and that a sort of broad consumer first kind of strategy where you get the AI working for everyone and then you kind of roll this into business is the way to go. If you look at apparel and robotics, for many years, the predominant paradigm of how we thought about AI and robotics was that you would solve one task and then the next task, and then 10 years later, you would have about 10 tasks. But really, there's a promise now that you can have a general purpose AI that can control many, many tasks all at once, and that's what makes a humanoid robot make a lot of sense.
So one of the things I found fascinating when I was visiting Bernd Bornick, your CEO, who's a brilliant entrepreneur, was the realization that in order to make the Neo Gamma robot happen, you've had to build every part of the robot. There's no supply chain for humanoid robots, and now you've built actually a manufacturing facility to create these robots. Can you speak about sort of the technology behind it?
Of course, yes. And this was the key insight that Bernd had 10 years ago when he was getting into robotics. It was the insight that we want to build robots that are safe around people, and the existing robotic technologies of the time that you see in a factory inside of a cage are not appropriate for making a humanoid robot. Sure, you could take an industrial arm and take 4 of them and put them on a torso and call that a humanoid robot, but that does not make it safe around people in the same way that an industrial machine is not safe around people. So the core innovation was first developing a actuation system that is compliant and safe and soft around people, and then coupling that with a very high torque density motor, all of which were developed in-house. And this was started in a barn by Bernd, where he developed both the motor and the drive system, the tendon drive system. And now that gives us an enormous hardware advantage in terms of having a very light robot that is yet also very strong and safe around people.
Fantastic. But I think what has differentiated 1X from other robot companies is your focus on going into the home. And we're going to show a video in a second, but when I asked Bernd about why the home, the answer surprised me. Do you want to speak about what the mission is and why you would go into the home versus the factory?
Of course, yes. So the home represents a strategy that's very similar to the ChatGPT strategy that OpenAI has. You want to first solve many, many tasks in diverse environments and have data from the most diverse environments possible, which is the home, because the home is so unstructured, right? Even if you have one home, it is different every single day, and so every day is a new kind of data. The contrast of this is the factory, where you might be getting 10,000 hours of data of a single pick in a factory, but after the first 100 hours, you're actually just getting duplicate data at that point. So if you draw an analogy to LLMs, it's like you need to run the deduplication process to get your training data ready for your general AI. We think that the home represents the scenario where you have the most diverse data per dollar spent of collecting it. And that's why we want to go home first. Once we solve the home, very similar to ChatGPT, we think that this could be rapidly specialized to the industrial use case. And paradoxically, getting to the factory and making that work very well is probably faster through first generalizing in the home.
So the way I think about it, I mean, and Bernd said, his mission is to get enough data to help build a general intelligence, an AGI. And what convinced me of the logic here was like a toddler learns by crawling around the home and interacting around the home. And if you put a toddler in a very limited spot where they only saw the same thing every day, they would not grow their intelligence. So I completely get that. Now, you made an announcement just the other day that I found fascinating. You announced pricing. Do you want to share what the pricing announcement was?
Of course. Why don't we cue the video? This is a message from our CEO, and it also announces the pre-order and the pricing.
Great. Let's roll the video.
My name is Bernd, and today we're launching Neo, our humanoid for the home.
Ain't no sunshine when she's gone.
Neo is a humanoid companion designed to transform your life at home. It combines AI and advanced hardware to help with daily chores and bring intelligence into your everyday life.
When she's gone, and this house just ain't no home. Anytime she goes away.
As someone who lives with Neo every day, there is no experience quite as magical. So today, we're excited to invite you in on this journey. Pre-order your Neo today at OneX.tech.
$20,000 to buy the robot. You can put your order in right now, $200 to hold the spot. But what I find fascinating is $499 a month, right? You can do the math here, and it's, it's not that expensive per hour. We're talking under $1 an hour to have humanoid robot capability. That's pretty amazing. I put my order in. I hope you guys will follow suit. The company right now is raising a $1 billion round, and Mustali, your CFO, is here in town meeting with folks, which is amazing. The capital, I mean, you've built a manufacturing plant. I'm assuming that much of the capital will be used to accelerate the production. When I was talking to Bernd, it sounded like one of the visions is we're going to eventually get to a point where robots are building robots. Is that part of where you're going?
Exactly, that's right. So there's a lot of companies trying to build robots that help robots in factories, and help manufacture things in factories. And of course, there's a lot of labor needed in a factory that makes robots. So one way that we want to eventually get into the enterprise use case is to make sure that we're confident and secure in our own robots being helpful for our own processes. So that's a process that we're starting today with our own robots helping with very basic pick and place and machine tending tasks and palletizing and moving things around in the factory. I think that if you want to solve enterprise use cases, it's good to apply your own technology to your own enterprise and dog food the product before you sell it to someone else, and that's the strategy we're going to eventually take with the enterprise.
Do you have a sense of what your production growth plan is going to be? How many robots by the end of this year, end of 26, 27?
Yeah, we're setting a very ambitious goal for ourselves with the capital that we're currently raising to basically make 10,000 robots by the end of next year, with a steep ramp in the second half of the year, exiting about 2,000 robots per month at the end of next year in 2026. This will be basically sent to homes around the country in US, and hopefully opportunities for expansion to other countries like Saudi Arabia afterwards in 2027. Concurrently, we're planning to scale up more manufacturing sites and get to about another order of magnitude increase in production in 2027. So that's exiting about 100,000 robots by end of 2027. Very ambitious targets, but if you think about the grand scheme of things, millions of iPhones are made every year, and millions of cars are made every year. And so basically the journey to make humanoid robots scale that much is really just kind of repeating the same processes that these kind of technologies go through, and then having enough consumer demand to basically drive that.
It's interesting, when I first saw the Neo Gamma on YouTube, before I met Bernd and went to your facilities, it felt like it was a person in a robot suit. It really did. But that is Neo Gamma, and I've had conversations with Neo Gamma. I've had it, vacuum and serve me coffee, and we did a podcast on the Moonshots channel with Bernd and Neo Gamma, which I found very compelling. So we have probably a dozen serious companies in the United States, probably a couple of dozen companies in China, and probably, overall hundreds of companies building humanoid robots. What do you imagine your sustainable differentiator, your sustainable moat is going to be?
Yeah, we live in a time of vibe coding where a lot of things can be built very quickly, and this is kind of broadly disrupting all kinds of software in the startup space. And I would say that to continue to really lead the space, we have to invest very heavily in software, hardware, and product. Those are kind of the big three differentiators, and as well as, supply chain and manufacturing, so there's four. On the hardware side, we're not done innovating. We are really much ahead in terms of like compliant, safe tendon drives and high density motors, and we have to keep going and press our advantage and keep inventing better motors and better actuation systems. And so we are already starting the kind of design process for the next generation of robot past the one that's shipping to homes. On the software side, this is a general AI race. It's not just about the sort of race to make the best humanoid robot AI. It's really actually about the race to make the best physical AI and digital AI at the same time. I have a belief that the future assistant of in a couple years is not going to be necessarily just an app that you open on your phone and you chat with it. The best AI assistants in a couple years will be things where you can open the app and you can talk to a robot, or you can talk live to an actual robot, and it'll be a very seamless transition between helping you digitally as well as helping you physically. And you can imagine that like for larger populations and people who have yet to really experience the magic of these general AI assistants, like my grandma, she would probably much prefer to talk to a humanoid robot, right? So there's this kind of broader, important thing that we have to build, which is general AI in the most broad sense. And then finally, on supply chain, China has a huge lead on top of everyone else, and we want to catch up. And so basically, the goal is to learn how to build these things and build them cheap and make them very scalable.
So, final question here. I'm curious, why aren't you just using, GPT-5 or Gemini 3 to power the AI systems? Why do you need to build your own AI systems?
That's a great question, Peter. So the AI that goes into a humanoid robot, there's actually many kinds of capabilities that go into it. There are things that happen at extremely high frequencies, like 100 times a second, that Gemini wouldn't actually be able to do fast enough. For example, balancing the robot, or if I'm opening this bottle, just making sure that the cap is slipping correctly, right? And these kind of things are things that humans take for granted, but they happen very fast, and they have to be kind of developed using smaller, compact, almost like reflex style kind of intelligence. And so that's the kind of model that we built. Gemini is quite smart about a lot of things, and OpenAI is also very smart about a lot of visual intelligence, but they make a lot of elementary mistakes that make it not possible to turn it into a useful robot, at least for today. So a common one would be that if I have 3 bottles on the table and I ask Gemini to pick up the bottle, it might tell me that the bottles are actually sort of in the centroid of all 3 bottles, and that has to do with the way that it attends to the query of bottle to multiple objects and then can't really parse the spatial things afterwards, right? So the frontier models of today, while very general and very useful to a lot of people, still have a lot of capabilities that just really interfere with the ability to interact with the physical world. For example, if I'm trying to pick up the bottle, now I'm covering up the bottle, and actually Gemini might forget that it's trying to pick up a bottle, right? These are everyday things that come up, and so we're building our own models to overcome these kinds of limitations and scale up our own data sets and train our own foundation models.
Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Eric Zhang here. Best of luck with 1X. Excited to get mine, as I said.